Good evening. Amy Mangold couldn't be with us, so Patrick and I are here, just the two of us. We're going to try to be civil and at the same time try to talk about the midterm elections and what's in store for the future. Patrick, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing good, Judge. They call this Newsmakers now. It's not Shively and
true.
Shoulders.
That's true.
So if we're too old to have our name in the title, we can't be Newsmakers, can we?
I think we are senior advisors to the public.
Perfect. I'll accept that. Happy holidays to you and all of our many viewers. We know that this show brings them in from all over the tri-state area. We wish all of you the best of the holidays.
Absolutely. Let's get down to it.
All right. There was just an election.
Just an election, and I tell you what, one thing I know we can agree on. After 2 years, the pollsters still can't get it right.
They really can't. They don't have a clue. And you know why I think that is? Number one is there aren't that many newspapers active anymore.
Right.
God knows we don't have one in this town. And secondly, nobody has a landline anymore. So how do they take polls? You can't call people, I don't think, on their cell phones. So what, do they stand in malls with clipboards?
They use the internet. They have websites where they conduct surveys, etc. I'm not really sure, but they claim that they're accurate. Well, I've been claiming that for the last 2 election cycles.
Well, I do know this. Very uncharacteristically, I did try to do my homework a little bit, Judge.
You did? What did you do?
Well, I downloaded this morning. It's on my desk right now. I forgot to bring it.
That's a good place for it.
Yes. The vote totals in Vanderburgh County. And it showed that of 20,000 voters, we voted about 33%, 34%, right. About 45-ish thousand ballots, 48,000 ballots cast. So the turnout, I would say, was not great locally.
No.
So we can start with a point of agreement.
Yeah, it was not great, but kind of disappointing election night. Why did it take 4 or 5 hours, given the voter turnout number you just gave us?
Clearly because there hasn't been a Democrat in the clerk's office for many, many years.
And then, post-election, they canceled out 139 votes because someone had not properly signed the back of the ballot.
There were no races where 139 votes would have made any difference, except school board at large.
Yes.
I believe the difference between candidate Worthington and the winner might have been within that margin you just said.
So it's too bad. There's always next year.
There is that. And I think probably a low turnout. We didn't have, obviously, presidential race at the top of the ticket. The top of the ticket was the U.S. Senate race. This is called a segue in the business. The U.S. Senate race in the state of Indiana that had little or no interest or excitement.
And there again, I don't know who this polling agency was. I don't think it was the Democrat candidate, but they kept saying this was a tight race. It never was tight.
Never.
And so
I will say this. Todd Young is at least not doctrinaire. Todd Young did the right thing, bipartisan thing on the CHIPS Act. Todd Young voted, in my view, correctly on the codification of the Freedom to Marry Who You Love Act, unlike my name is Senator Mike No Brains All Brawn, who I see has just announced for governor.
Yes, he has. He announced, there's our senator.
There he is.
On the front page of the Indianapolis Star.
Is his platform, you can do nothing as a senator for 6 years? Let me try that as governor?
Well, he did say, Patrick, that he was not going to run for another term. He's made it clear he's a one-termer as a senator. So he had to look for another public office.
I see.
What's interesting about that is all the Republicans that had, prior to his announcement, were lining up. The Attorney General, Todd Rokita, Suzanne Crouch, Lieutenant Governor.
Our own hometown gal.
And a few others. But now, Mike Braun has announced, and you talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the race in terms of the money and the contacts. He's starting out of the gate
Probably already has a war chest.
Oh, yeah.
This would be the same Mike Brown who, as I recall, first voted not to certify the election, but then had a change of heart somewhere around that first or second day and decided that maybe the peaceful transfer of power was important in America.
Well, I don't know what his thought process was, but he eventually did the right thing, that's for sure.
But he's been a loyal Trumpist, voted with along that party line from beginning to end, and he's not someone we need for governor of the state. But we're not here to talk about Mike Brown.
Let's go back and talk about these midterm results. Why did the red wave not occur? Well, I'm going to answer my own question. You can jump
take
in.
that one.
Again, I heard a commentator, one that I respect, talking about this. Republicans are good at running campaigns, buying media. What Republicans are not as accomplished in running elections, getting out the vote. I think the Democrats...
Grassroots kind of stuff.
Exactly. I think the Democrats demonstrated that, and I think the red wave scare got them fired up, and they pulled all the stops, and they got the vote out, and I think that was one of the factors. Not the only factor. Another factor is the Trump factor.
Absolutely.
President Trump declared he's going to run in 2024. He made that declaration on the 15th of November. At that press conference, or that announcement, he said that all of the candidates that he had endorsed won. A little problem with that.
As recently as last night.
Yeah, the candidates he endorsed won their primaries, but they got beat like a drum in the general election because those people that emerged from the primary were not necessarily quality candidates. And I think Herschel Walker was a great football player at Georgia, but he was not the type of person that people could see as a senator from the great state of Georgia.
I think, as tactfully as it could be put, Senator McConnell from our neighboring state of Kentucky said, quality of candidates makes a difference. And, you know, it occurred to me as I was driving here that the state of Minnesota one morning woke up in a hangover saying, you know, it's time for a change. And they elected a professional wrestler, Jesse Ventura, as governor. And after 4 years, they thought, oh, my word, what have we done? I think America, and they have professional wrestling in common as I think about it. Donald Trump had some professional wrestling connection. I think America is now waking up to the fact that Trump was a bad idea, that he built 3 miles of wall that Mexico didn't pay for, that his corporation was just found guilty of 17 counts of tax fraud, that he's the only person in the world that could bankrupt a casino, that maybe we're getting over that. And I do think this midterm showed the Trump factor is now in a general election, not in a primary, as you make that point. In a general election, which is why you didn't see him in Georgia, he's not going to help you get elected. I think J.D. Vance in Ohio is his only success story.
I think that's right. And again, J.D. Vance was a good candidate, strong candidate.
Well, we could debate that one, but let's talk about our own races. We know Todd Young had no problem. We know that congressman can't pick him out of a lineup. Nobody's ever seen him. Larry Bouchon.
A great public servant.
Larry Bouchon has no problem getting reelected because the local party and the state Democratic Party has trouble raising any money to put anybody on TV to say, Larry went there to fix health care, voted against Obamacare 70 times, and has never done a thing for you, but he's going to be there again for you for the next 2 years.
I think his record is a little more positive than that, but I don't want to go there. I do want to talk about something that we both thought was an obvious situation with the Republican candidate for Secretary of State, and yet he prevailed. You tell me why you think that happened.
I think it happened because of this, and it happened in our own county, which is one of the reasons I wanted to study Vanderburgh County. On Election Day, the Republicans started with a 4,000 vote majority based on straight ticket voters. Of the total number of ballots cast in Vanderburgh County, more than 50% of those ballots were straight tickets on both parties. So Diego came out that morning with a 4,000 vote margin. With the other 44% who took time, like me and you, to pick and choose candidates, Diego still won. I think that is because we are so polarized in this country, in this state, in this county, that for many people, I don't care who they are, Democrats stand for defunding police and gay marriage and are anti-God and kill babies, so he's got to be better than whoever the alternative is. They didn't take time to study it. I'll finish with this. Will Rogers said many years ago, about 50% of the public reads the newspaper and about 50% of the public votes. God help us if it ain't the same 50%. Diego proves it ain't the same 50%.
Well, I have a little different view. The issue about Diego Morales, all those, if you want to call them scandals or shortcomings, et cetera, the fact that he'd been fired by the Secretary of State's office
Terminations.
twice. That was an Indianapolis news story. That really was not covered in a big way in the rest of the state. And it was incumbent upon the Democrats in support of their candidate to get that information out, and they didn't do it. They allowed that story to become a beltway, not beltway, but within the I-465 area, and it never reached the rest of the state. And I think that's what, I really believe in voters. If voters get the information, and it's correct information, they'll do the right thing. I don't think there was enough information on this particular candidate that went out beyond Indianapolis.
No doubt you are correct on that a large percentage of the fault is the fact that we don't have a very effective statewide organization or money. But secondly, let us say this. When the Holcomb administration is fully supportive of Holly Sullivan, another local person, in that office, she loses to this
at the convention
to this election denier who's twice been fired from the job he seeks, who's got other accusations out there. How can it be that in this campaign, Republicans, statewide office-holding Republicans, held their nose and said, vote Diego? The brave, legitimate, honorable thing to do would have been for the Republican Party to say, you know what, this guy doesn't deserve that gig. So the Democrats could have done better, but in the end, notable Republicans were campaigning with and for and spending money on Diego Morales.
There again, he was appropriately and legally nominated by the party at the convention.
He was.
And that really creates a dilemma for the party power structure, if you will. But let's move on.
Let us move on. We lost that one. Destiny Wells should run again. Veteran, law degree, worked hard, great candidate, just tough to get elected.
And again, not to spend a whole lot of time on this, had she had the backing of the party in a big way and the money behind her, she would have.
Maybe.
She was a good candidate.
Maybe. Diego won in this county. You pretty much only had to be a Republican in this county, except if you ran for sheriff.
Now, I want to go back.
How about that?
Well, that's true. I want to go back to the governor's race. Now, all these Republicans have announced.
Yes.
The Democrats, they need a hero. They deserve a hero.
Evan Bayh won every time he elected.
Pat shoulders. Now, as a nonpartisan public servant, I can't endorse you or even start your campaign or even be a part of your exploratory committee. But I hope someone out there listening will say, Les, you're right. Pat's retired from the board of trustees of IU. He's got a clear field of vision. He can take the state where it's never been before. Now, that may be the wrong way, but I'm sure you can accomplish that.
So which office? You want me to announce for governor?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? We'll save that for another Newsmakers. Let us talk about the Georgia Senate. What are we talking about next?
Let's talk about what's going on locally.
Let's do that. Or the election locally.
Well, the election, we got a new prosecutor.
We do.
And we got a new sheriff. And I think we are.
And that is a fascinating, all of you that are political junkies like the judge and I, if you study the numbers, once again, Republicans had a 4,000 vote plurality in majority in straight ticket. But about a little less than half, but about half of the people then exercised independent judgment. The gap was always, 25 to 19-ish kind of deal. The numbers, she did a little better for prosecutor, and the numbers for sheriff, one a Democrat and one a Republican, are almost flips.
Oh, yes.
So,
Yeah.
to your point,
Yep.
educated voters made a choice.
Yeah, yes.
They split the ticket beyond the gap from the straight ticket, 14,000 straight ticket, but she got 25,000. So, I mean, people did make a choice in those two races.
They did, and I think in both races you had qualified candidates on both sides
Yeah.
of the ticket. Let's talk about what's before the voters next year. Now, next year is a municipal election.
City, mayors, city council.
Everybody's talking about 24, thinking nationally. Let's think local.
All politics are local.
And this mayor's race is shaping up to be a barn burner
Well, it truly is.
in the Republican primary.
Someone smarter than both of us said, if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Right.
Cheryl Musgrave perhaps either didn't read that or doesn't care about that, because all one needs to think back to is Rick Davis announcing, may he rest in peace, Rick Davis announcing for mayor before Jonathan Winesapple, twice popularly elected, had determined whether he was running it, or at least announced it. That split the Democratic Party into at least halves and allowed a Republican to take back that office where a Republican hadn't been mayor for a long time. What do we have this time? Lloyd Winnicky, popularly elected to the point he had almost no opponent 3 times, has done a magnificent job, has not yet denounced whether he's running again, and Cheryl Musgrave, completely disrespecting, in my view, Lloyd Winnicky, his term in office and his decision, announces, just like Rick Davis did, and I believe history is repeating itself as we speak. I don't have a lot of sources on that side of the aisle. I believe the Republican Party locally is splitting, is fragmenting as we speak.
Well, I don't know what the Republican Party is doing or not doing, but the difference between that situation and the situation before us now, Cheryl Musgrave is an elected official right now. She's a county commissioner. She's been the county assessor. She upset a long time serving Democrat who held that office for 20 plus years. Every time she's run, she's been successful.
With an exception, but go ahead.
Well, there's one, but basically she's got a track record. And I believe, generally speaking, she's popular with many voters. Now, her opponent in this primary, there may be other candidates, but I think there is one other candidate. He's kind of a perennial candidate. But Natalie Reisler has announced that she's going to run for the mayor in the Republican primary. And she's supported by the mayor. I believe that whatever those differences are between the mayor and his group and Ms. Musgrave and her group, it's sort of like inside baseball stuff. The voters really aren't into that. And if Natalie Reisler is going to prevail, Mayor Lloyd is going to have to come out early, which she has, and strong, and use all of his sources, shall we say, his supporters, to get her over the line, because I just don't think the average voter is going to be motivated by who announced when, and I really don't think that's going to be a motivating factor without some active conduct by the mayor pushing her candidacy.
And he's already announced publicly his support for candidate Rasher,
Right.
who ran a strong race in the 2nd Ward 4 years ago. Almost going to be a recount,
yeah.
and then at the last minute there wasn't. But let me make this point.
Yes, sir.
The only time Cheryl has run when she didn't have the Vanderburgh County buffer, strongly Republican, always has been. Look at your county council makeup. Look at the commissioner races. She has the township vote. The one time she didn't have the township vote, she ran in what was primarily a city limits race in the legislature against Gail Reekin, and she lost. So take away the buffer, those Republican votes that you can count on, and make this a 4th Ward, 6th Ward, 2nd Ward, 5th and 1st Ward race, and we'll see if candidate Musgrave, who disrespected Lloyd Winnicky, is as strong. She may be, but Lloyd has 12 years, a bank account, and a whole lot of people that think he did a pretty good job, and I think his voice in this election will bear weight.
That's what's going to, for Natalie to prevail, he's going to have to be out there often, and has to be out there loud and proud in support, because Cheryl, with the general voters, has a great reputation. She's a strong candidate. By the way, the Reekin race is a little...
Dated?
No, yeah, you're a little swift on that. The city of Evansville has grown through annexation. There's a lot more...
I think that was 2010-ish. You know, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in a city race, you don't have the county. And the county is a Republican stronghold.
My, how times have changed. Before we...
Let's talk about how many minutes we got, less than 5 maybe. Last night, we're doing this on a Wednesday. I think, don't you think that was the last nail in the Trump coffin, that Warnock and now 51 seats in the U.S. Senate? I mean, and the same day the Trump conviction. I mean, don't you think that sort of realigns national politics going into what will be a presidential year next year?
I think so. And the other thing, Warnock's victory also means that the Republicans and the Democrats don't have to share numbers of members on various committees of the Senate. Chuck Schumer gets to make the call now, and that's a big change. So we're going to see the legislative agenda change quite a bit. Now I realize Republicans have control of the House.
You do have that. Which we could spend a show talking about Kevin McCarthy's ability to herd cats, because he's still got a Trump wing there that he's going to have to make deals with. You know that.
What we're going to see in this 2024 election cycle is profiles encouraged by Republicans that stand up and do the right thing and not placate a certain element of the party. Now, before we wrap up here.
Yes, we have 2 minutes. Let's tell people what we're doing.
What's that? What are we doing?
Well, we're on Newsmakers. This is our second show in a month. Are we going to do this again?
That is a surprise.
Oh, okay.
Don't.
Did I open the package before Christmas Eve?
I think you did.
Oh, there I go again.
But all these laws that people in your party said were there to stifle voter turnout, especially those laws in Georgia, which caused Major League Baseball to move the All-Star game to Georgia to some obscure location. Mm-hmm. What a bunch of nonsense. Voter turnout was a record in Georgia. Voter turnout in the runoff election was a record. The laws ensured the integrity and, in fact, resulted in a great turnout. And I think it's really a shame that the city of Atlanta got punished by the likes of people that raised the voter suppression issue, because this wasn't true.
Well, it was true. You cut the polls off at 7 there. They cut down on many polling places. They changed the various states you could vote. But it shows that even if you put somebody in prison, they will still try to escape. The fact is, our voters were so motivated by the fact that Warnock is a great candidate and Walker, who's a Heisman Trophy winner on the football field, was a bad candidate for Senate. They put up with whatever they had to cast that vote. But Republicans will always gerrymander and suppress the vote. It's their only hope.
Well, I disagree with you there. Talking about voter security, I remember Fred Cate. You know Fred. Professor Cate.
Sure. Indiana University.
We were both at a discussion where he was the featured speaker, and someone in the audience asked Professor Cate, how do you have a really secure election? Because he's this computer IT expert. IU, he's the expert for IU. In fact, people from all over the country consult with him. And you know what he said? The best way to have a secure election? Paper ballots. Which I thought was an interesting. We've made things, I think, so complicated that we need to go back to some of the basics.
And speaking of back to the basics are we wish you the best for the holidays. We thank you for watching Newsmakers and this version of Shively and Shoulders. And we hope that if we're ever on again, you'll tune in again.
Take care.